Hey, so welcome back. If you have been watching last year, the construction project of the Fern House, this video is here today to kind of show you how everything wrapped up in the end. I've waited a while to make it, and that's because I didn't know entirely how some of my off-grid features were going to end up working out. And I've had a whole summer and fall season now of guests who have come in and stayed here. I've had fantastic feedback from them, hearing a lot of affirming things that were exactly what I was hoping to create here. People talking about the amount of creativity that they were able to experience staying here, the amount of connectedness, reconnecting with people close to them, all that kind of stuff. So that was what I was hoping for. I can go around now and show you the features of this off-grid cabin, and I can give you some actual feedback as to how they worked for us. Some of them did get changed, and I can explain that, and some of them worked fine just the way they were. So welcome, come on in. All right. Welcome to the Fern House. It's been a while since I've invited everybody in. All right, so we could start out with the kitchen setup, how that turned out in the end. I have a propane stove over here. We had no issues with that running this year. It's a small stove, but it's worked really adequately for people's needs down here. No complaints. The fridge I was originally going to have as propane, ended up going with a 12-volt DC fridge. So you can see here the brand is unique. And at one point when I had the fridge and the toilet fan run on the same circuit. So when I have them on, I believe I was drawing about 3 amps of power altogether with the two of them off of my system. So it is an efficient unit as long as it's not being asked to cool a lot of stuff from room temperature. I ended up going with the 6 cubic foot unit. I was concerned that that wouldn't be enough space, but it has actually provided adequate space for the guests and for their needs for their stay. Water in the kitchen. I did not go with running water in the kitchen. What I went with is having this tub. So this is the wash tub right there. And up on this little platform, I have a water container that has a spigot. So it holds about 2.5 gallons of water, and that can be placed on here, turned back and forth. It's high enough, it reaches into the basin, and people can wash their dishes up. I let them know that they can either dump that water out on the gravel, or they can put it down the drain in the bathroom. So that seems to work well. I've only had a few people who were pretty stumped by what does it mean to have a camp style kitchen because they don't really camp. So, and it's fine. They asked, I explained, and they were like, that's cool. I have kept an additional water supply down here so that when that container gets empty, they can refill. So altogether, they have a little over 5 gallons of water in the kitchen ready to be used. If they need more than that, they can let me know. I also have been supplying bottled water up here in the cabinets as well as the fridge for drinking. All of the water I supply down here comes from my well, and I know some people might not care for having well water that's not regularly tested, so they can have that for their drinking water. While we're standing here, I will point out the stove. This little stove was slightly bigger than what I probably needed to adequately heat the space. It was given to me. It has worked great. It's very toasty, heats up our space quickly down here. You can bank it up pretty good and get it to go mostly through the night. So I've had no complaints with that. Folks have enjoyed using that, and I will just show you the firewood stash actually is right out here. So we converted one of these old dye containers into a wood stash bin and put it up on a little bit of a platform so that we can come down here with a skid loader or a tractor and put a supply down here. So that has worked well. Other things regarding water. We'll move into the bathroom next. All right, so as far as the bathroom goes, we've ended up with the water jug under here. All right, so I have a 5-gallon water jug that I have a plastic tube that goes down into. That tube goes up underneath through a hole and to this little spigot. Okay, this little spigot I got off of Amazon. I think it was about 20 bucks, and it is rechargeable. So I do have a charge station in here, and when it needs charged up, we just hook it up. You push the button on top, and out comes the water, and then turn it off. So that has worked well. I've had a few people who have gone through their water supply during their stay that did ask for a refill. I keep some extra bottles up at the house like this, so I can easily just run one down to them. But the 5 gallons has seemed to meet most people's needs for 2 to 3 day stays here at the bathroom sink. So that's how the water is in the sink. It is running. Water as far as the shower, people may be interested to know how that worked out in the end. So I will take you outside and show you the outside components of the system. I'm actually getting ready to winterize it today. But I have a hot water, instant hot water heating system here, okay? So you can adjust the temperature and the flow rate, okay? And they also have a summer to winter setting, depending on what you're kind of anticipating the amount of heat that it's going to require. It does heat up really fast. So right now, the way we have this set up is this is the water inlet. So if I want to go ahead and turn on the shower, I'm going to hit it there. Click, click, and you can kind of see it lit in there right away, okay? I got my water coming out from there. And that heats pretty instant. It's warm already. Oh my gosh, it feels wonderful. I'm down here to work, but I could jump in there and take a shower. So that is the hot water setup. When you want to turn it off, you just turn off the shut-off valve for the water coming in. That's it. It automatically turns off the unit. So we keep the directions there for folks, and I haven't had anybody not be able to operate it yet. That doesn't look so pretty right there. And maybe one of these days I'll make some kind of nice little wooden apparatus to go around it and cover it up, but I just haven't. While we're in the bathroom, I will point out the toilet. This is a major thing that got changed here. So the original toilet setup was a unit that was given to me. It was not made for off-grid use. So one, it needed AC electricity to operate both a heater unit and a fan. So one, I was using an inverter, which I had directly wired in back here. That actually caused us some issues with my solar control panel. So that was a little bit of a problem. Had to replace some parts. I would not recommend adding the inverters in if you can avoid it. And the other thing too is I kept having to get larger and larger inverters in an attempt to get the heater unit in that unit to work. During the summer months, I didn't need the heater unit for that unit to work. There was enough heat in here anyhow. It composted beautifully. You know, June, July, August, even into September, that unit was working great. And then the temperatures started dropping towards the end of September, and all of a sudden, way too much moisture hanging out in there. I wasn't getting the composting, wasn't getting enough heat. I wasn't sifting it down through the layers of the brackets, how that unit worked. And I was just like, this clearly is not going to work. I was putting a lot of energy and effort between each guest to maintain that toilet, way more than I wanted to. So I ended up going with this unit here. This is the OGO, and I am very pleased with this. This is a separator unit, and it is also meant for off-grid. So it actually came with a 12-volt fan motor. Hear that? It's running right now. You can't even hear it. It's awesome. So I just wired that directly into my circuit here. And then this is the vent hose. So this was the pipe that I had set up for the previous unit. So this is just an adaptation to put the vent hose that came with this unit into it. It separates the urine and the solids. So this is a unit that you do need to sit down to use, but I did change it before the end of the season, and I hadn't anybody have issues with it. So you pull this open, solids go in there. Obviously it drains away your liquid in here. There's actually a second catch back here, so if any liquids accidentally are going in over here, it will catch them into the front container. The container holds almost 2.5 liters, which is pretty comparable actually to the Nature Head unit, which is really runs on the same idea as that. This though does have an electric churn, so you just push the button here. And you can hear it. It does a 2-minute mixing cycle for the solids container. I went with that for 2 reasons. One, I just thought it would be easier for folks. People seem to have plenty of questions about composting toilets. They often wanted to know, like, oh, am I doing it right? Have I turned it enough? So I thought this way nobody's here cranking and worrying, did I manage the toilet right? They know they just push the button, it does its thing. The other part to that is that button will light up if the solids container either reaches a full point or the liquid container reaches a full point. So it just was a way to make it a little bit more user-friendly for guests who are not used to using a composting toilet every day. The solids container is up front here, and I can show that to you. 1 minute. There we go. So we see we have the solids container right there. I'm using the Coco Core in there. It seemed like, from what I read, a lot of people are having a lot of success with that. So yeah, right now all I smell is dirt and earth, even though there are solids in there. There's no issue with odor. So I can pull this out. This is my liquids container. All right. And currently I have no liquids in there. I did spray it down with vinegar after its last use inside so that we can stay on top of not having any odors. But if it needs emptied, there is a cap for it. You just take this out, take it off, and go empty it in the appropriate place. So then that slides back in. So for a long weekend stay, I have found that this has been sufficient for 2 people. Although it is mostly full. And, you know, if there was 3 people staying down here or they were staying longer, I would anticipate that it would need emptied. I think some people would be comfortable doing that on their own. I could direct them to doing that. Other folks would probably be like, no, thank you. You can come do that while we're out hiking or something sometime. And I don't mind doing that. I mean, hey, whatever. I've been a nurse for a long time, so a pee container does not scare me. The other thing I did go to, oops, and I need to put some tape on that, is not putting any toilet paper in the composting toilet. So I don't know if that was causing me issues with my other toilet or not, but some feedback I had gotten from watching online other folks that use composting toilets, they said things just went better when they weren't putting it in, even if they were using like the thinnest Scott's paper. So I got this container. Expectation is guests are just supposed to take out their bag of dirty toilet tissue, put it in with the trash to get rid of before they go, but they can place their paper in here, and that way we can have ideal composting going on here. I'm super happy with the Ogo so far. I like the amount of space that it adds back into my bathroom. I'm very happy with that. And it's been user-friendly so far. So that was one upgrade I did. I'm not disappointed in the other unit I got, in that I think it was very helpful to spend a season learning how to use a composting toilet. It was a really hard decision for me to figure out what toilet I wanted because I'd never used one before when I started this project. So for me personally, I feel like having a season using that one really just helped me understand that composting process, what made things work best, what maybe I needed for my setup, especially since it was being used by people who weren't using this toilet all the time or familiar with using a composting unit. So by the time I decided it had to go and I needed a new one, it was really easy to make up my mind on purchasing this one, getting it in and setting it up. By the way, the install was super simple. I had laughed. I said it was easier to install this new unit than what it was to keep maintaining my previous unit. So, that I was super happy with. I, ordered mine from Amazon, got it literally in 2 days. They're made here in the US, and, the price point was right on. It was about $1,000, which is what you're looking at for most units. So I had no complaints. Probably also worth mentioning that that unit is designed for 12 volt off-grid capacity. So its total amount of energy use is 1 amp hour each day. And that's taking in the fan running and then assuming that 2-minute spin cycle for any solids that go into it will probably be ran 3-4 times a day with multiple people using it. So that is much less than I would have used even if I had put on a larger inverter and ran the heating unit in my original toilet to try to make that work better. All right, so this is my water source for the shower. So you can see the cabin down below. I originally wanted to run the system off of gravity, and that just wasn't possible. I couldn't get enough flow into the hot water heater to really get a good shower out of it. I did get a flow rate hot water heater, so it doesn't matter about how much pressure is going into the unit to keep it running. It's how much flow of water. So because of that, you can run it with a lot less pressure, and I was hoping again that would allow me to get away with gravity, but that didn't happen. The only reason I was really hung on the gravity thing was I just wanted to try to have less parts and pieces to the setup, so I figured that would be less chances of something breaking or going wrong or malfunctioning, but it's fine. So what we came up with is this. So I have the water tank. It holds 40 gallons of water. I fill that up, top it off before the guests come. I found that you can get about 4 10-minute showers out of that for most people. So, and honestly, I've had few guests actually go through all their water and need it refilled during the stay. If they do, that's fine. I tell them, just give me a heads up if you're 4 showers into it, and I'll be sure to come down and fill you up. Honestly, I could easily cart this up to the house and fill it, but I have found it's just easier. I have some 5-gallon water containers. I just keep them on the back of my side-by-side, fill them up, bring them down, dump them in. So the pump is over here on the side, and I have my garden hose coming into that with a shut-off valve, and then it just runs down through the woods and goes into the cabin. Over here, we're running the pump with a solar panel. My husband devised this toolbox setup. So he just got a toolbox, he mounted a solar panel on top and put a battery inside. When he did that, he included a little shut-off switch here. Sorry, I'm everywhere. Here, there's a little shut-off switch, so I can go ahead and turn that off. Kills the power there. Like I said, today I'm winterizing the cabin. We've had exceptionally warm weather for this time of year, but our temperatures are going to start going down into the 20s this coming week. So I'm just going to be taking that part up to the house. I'm going to disconnect this, wrap up the hose, and take this up to the house. I do have guests coming in December, and they know that they're not going to have any showers while they're here. But as long as the cabin's being heated, they'll be able to have water there in the bathroom sink that they can use to wash up a little bit with. And if you're okay with roughing it and you don't mind that, well, then you're welcome to stay in December. Last feature to talk about would be the solar panels. As far as off-grid goes, my panel is located right down there. And when the issue that we came into that with is, you know, we made a decision in about the end of the summer of where we were going to place that panel. We made that decision. That was a full lit spot. We did not watch that spot for a whole year round because we have lived here for years and we kind of had a pretty good gist of the way the sun goes. What we didn't take into account for is summer solstice. So what ended up happening was in like June, when the sun was the highest that it is in the sky, right? As the Earth's tilt shifts, we were ending up getting a, you can see we were getting like a shadow being cast from the edge of the wood line down to where that solar panel is. And that was just enough by like 30 feet that it was keeping that panel out of the sun and preventing it from getting a full charge on it. So, you know, here I am kind of in prime guest season and I'm thinking, why am I not getting full charges on my batteries? It's pretty perplexed. And as we were watching it, we realized that if we had that panel about 30 feet further down, that wouldn't have been a problem. So hindsight is, you know, the advice to watch your area for a full year before you decide where your solar arrays go is excellent advice. You know, we were pretty close to the mark, but we were about 30 feet off. So the solution was, well, first we could either move the panel, and I already had the cabin booked up with guests, and and I was just tired from the construction of the whole thing. We all were. Like, I was just done with messing with it. I didn't want to come down here and move the panel. So we added another battery to our solar setup. I mean, it wasn't the ideal answer, but it got us through because we figured that ultimately we were really looking at a window of 6 weeks until we would, the sun would be, because of course after, you know, we hit like June 21st, at that point, then the sun starts going back down in the sky again. So, and we are in South Central Pennsylvania as a reference point. So, I mean, this is going to be different depending on where you're located. But from that point forward, the sun would be going back down in the sky for us, and I would be getting more charging hours a day. So having the extra battery did get us through, but I did have to keep a close eye on solar. All right, so here is the battery, or my whole little power corner here for the cabin. If you haven't watched the prior videos, in this cabinet I have my solar control panel and my electrical panel. There we go. And then down underneath here is where my batteries are kept. Of course, we originally had 2 batteries in there. Thankfully, I had enough room in this dry sink to add the 3rd battery to get us through when I had fewer charging hours a day on my solar array. I also keep down here a drawer of the charging devices. So things that get charged in this cabin include the bedside lamp, the Bluetooth speaker, lantern, flashlight, of course the faucet in the bathroom. So all the charging plugs you could need are down here for that. Plus I have an inverter. This is a small inverter. This is a 120 watt inverter meant for people to be able to charge laptops and things like that while they're here. Of course, the issue I was having in the bathroom was because I had a larger inverter. It was like 600 watts that I was trying to be able to run the toilet heater off of. So the electrician I worked with for my solar, he thought that one, the problem was I couldn't run that large of a inverter into one of these small USB 12 volt ports, receptacle ports. They just have like the real small 12 volt wires on them. And then I had eliminated that and directly wired it in. And then he was thinking that that was what ended up happening was I had fuses that blew in my solar control panel that could not be replaced. So I had to get that panel replaced. It wasn't a big deal expense-wise. It was an inconvenience. And of course it made my heart skip a beat because I had guests coming in and I was like, oh no, I got to get this power working. So, you know, long story short, I was trying to get toilet work for down here that really wasn't meant for this kind of a setup. And, well, I gave myself headaches because of that. But again, like I said, it was a good learning experience working with that toilet and helped me make a better decision when I actually did purchase my own. So I wanted to take a minute and talk about those batteries. I know we were trying to read different stuff and gather information about what batteries to purchase when we were looking at this system. I keep saying we, my husband was reading up on this stuff too. And we went with the lithium ion batteries. There's no maintenance. They have a long lifespan. So, and I was told originally that they would be okay to be down here in the cabin when it was below freezing during the winter months, but they wouldn't charge when they were cold. So what was happening was through October, we were starting to get some cold nights here and there. And if it was a cold night where nobody was staying in the cabin, so the wood stove wasn't running to keep the batteries warm, the batteries were essentially draining out from the fridge running, the toilet fan running, and then they were completely dead and unable to get a charge the next morning. So then I came down to get the cabin ready. I'm finding I have a completely dead battery cells that have no charge on them. So I was able to jumpstart them with a power pack like that you can put in your car to jumpstart a vehicle. That was not a big deal. That was easy to do. But then there was the time that it was going to take to get a new charge on those batteries. So I'm just letting you know, it wasn't a problem. I just had to work with the system a little bit and understand better how it functions. For me, it's a slight inconvenience if I have people coming and the weather's cooler, because now I know, okay, I'm probably going to need to go down the day before and make sure the batteries are jumped and ready to charge. And then I do need to, you know, keep a fire warm here overnight, just to make sure that they're not going to get, you know, if the weather's going to be really cold that night, that they're not going to drain out and die on me again, so that the guests coming in the next day actually have a full charge on the batteries to work with. If it was just me coming down to stay, it's not a big deal. I feel like that's something I could live with, and it's just an accommodation for being off grid that I could work into my routine. So I'm just letting you know, because, you know, a lot of this off-grid stuff, it's a matter of getting used to living with it and figuring out how it works. And you don't know what you don't know, and some things you're just not going to be able to figure out in advance until you actually lived with it. That's my take on it. I think I've pretty well covered a lot of the off-grid features in the cabin. If there's something that I didn't touch base on, that you're wondering how it turned out, or how it worked, or how it didn't work, or if I had to change something, let me know in the comments. I'd be happy to follow up that information. The only other thing that I can think of left to touch base on is the coffee, because coffee is really important, you know. So most Airbnbs are providing a Keurig or something that's super simple, and they can provide the K-Pods. And I was like, oh, how am I going to provide some coffee down here? So I ended up getting one of these. It's just a drip. It's a coffee drip filter. I do have paper filters that people can put inside of there, and it is meant to be a 1 cup, right? So it sits nicely like right on top of your cup. You put your coffee in there, you pour the water over, and it makes a great cup of coffee. In fact, I've had some really good feedback about how good the coffee is here. Now, I do get the coffee for guests ground fresh, roasted and ground fresh at a local coffee roaster here in town. So I think that adds to good coffee, but he has continually told me that making your coffee drip style is the best way to make it, with the water at 200 degrees. And I have started making it that way myself at home, and I'm finding I really like it too. So that's my last off-grid accommodation that I think has actually made life better all around for the guest and for myself. thing left at this point is for me to give a big old thank you to the many, many people that have helped me on this project. Some people physically helped me in building it. Some people provided ideas, knowledge, guidance. I had people connecting with me in person and online, and sometimes very randomly in places that I didn't expect to find them. And I believe every one of those interactions was a very purposeful and intended interaction to help this project become what it is. So this is not just me, this is a entire community of people that have put into this, some of which that maybe don't even realize that they have, and I am thankful for that. I also am thankful for the YouTubers out there who have been putting out videos on building, whether it was just really practical how-to information that was high quality, or whether it was just showing their building projects and what they're doing to maybe dive into the off-grid lifestyle. I know sometimes social medias and all that kind of stuff, it can get a rap that isn't the best, and it is a little difficult to navigate the ins and outs of it, but I am thankful that they put that information out there because, one, it was inspiring to me, two, it was very helpful in helping me accomplish the task that I'd set my mind to. And that's essentially why I put this information out there. One, I wanted guests to know when they show up what this building project was about, because people always like a story that goes with the place they stayed. And also, I hope that maybe I can give somebody a little bit of encouragement as they go to tackle a big project. A lot of what you've seen me do either A, wasn't entirely right, or it was me just trying to figure it out. I am not an expert for sure, and even after completing this, I still would not consider myself anything more than a novice tinkerer. So anyhow, but I hope that maybe it encourages somebody to get out there and make the project that they have in mind happen. All right, see you around.